Welcome back to another episode. And I'm kind of excited to introduce a series that we're going to do on a book that recently was released that I co-authored with Deb Kaplan. And it's called Coupleship Inc. From Financial Conflict to Financial Intimacy. I think this is probably a pretty big issue for a lot of people. So, Deb, maybe just start off and tell everybody how this book came together, and I'll see if I agree with the version or not.
Hi, Rick. And this is, first of all, what a great opportunity for you and I to talk about the book. And yeah, let's start with how this book came together. If I remember correctly, you and I had a meeting scheduled of which I completely, absolutely forgot because it was on Christmas Day 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago.
Really? We were meeting on Christmas Day?
Yeah. I had approached you and said, I'd love to collaborate. And you and I had this meeting and we talked about, let's talk about what that will be. And we scheduled a meeting that happened to be for Christmas Day. And I completely spaced it out. It was the day of Christmas Eve, I think. And I felt so guilty. We then got back and made it for New Year's Day. And it was on New Year's Day that we talked about, what are you up to? What am I up to? What do you think? What do you got going? And I said, I'm going to write another book on couples. And you said, yeah, like what kind of book? And I said, well, I don't know, couples and a relationship, a romantic relationship, it's more than just that. It's like a business, right? Come together. We don't just come together as a couple. We come together. It's kind of like a business entity. And you said, yeah, I'm doing this white paper on, for those who are not familiar with what a white paper is, it's a basic beginning of a theory that gets published before the actual theory comes to pass. And you were doing this white paper on internal family systems and money and couples. And we realized that we're coming at a very similar focus from a different perspective. And what a beautiful perspective that we could bring together for couples. And that, as I remember the story, is how this book came to pass. What do you remember?
Pretty much. We just talked about what could we collaborate on, and somehow we came up with a book. And it was a very interesting fit because Deb is a couples therapist and a couples financial therapist. And she's licensed and formally trained in that area. And spent a lot of time. You were in the pits, right? Was it Chicago Board of Exchange or?
No, the commodity option floor, exchange in New York, in the World Trade Center, back when it existed. And I traded commodity options. I also worked in for different firms on Wall Street in different financial derivatives. And so I have a history of finance, but really came to see what power and money does for people, with people, and how that changes people. And I saw that a lot in the couples I worked with. I saw how they negotiate or not, how they have conflict, and how do they resolve, oftentimes not well, conflicts around money.
So this is a expertise that I don't have, in that I'm not a couples therapist. I'm not a licensed therapist at all.
You're not a licensed couples therapist, but you do couples therapy every day in your job.
Yeah, by default.
You didn't know it, but you got into it.
So it's I am an IFS, certified IFS practitioner, and I've been around therapeutic environments and working with therapists and psychologists, and just about every book I've written is with a therapist or a psychologist, except for my first one.
Interesting.
So I bring a little bit different perspective. And ironically, when was that? Was that 2022, January 1st of 2022? Did we talk? Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Must have been.
Yes, correct.
And I think I had just completed training in Intimacy from the Inside Out by Tony Herbine Blank, which is the couples therapy side of IFS.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. I didn't know the timing of that.
I think that's when I took that. I took their basic training. And I took the basic training. It's no secret to anybody that listens to any podcast I do that I've been doing IFS therapy for myself I'm in my 7th year right now. And I have a little bit of wounding around listening to parents fight.
Hmm.
And I, even in facilitating financial help, I write that I had this couple get into this huge fight in my office. And my body was present, but I was somewhere under the desk. And I would talk about that all the time. Well, I would just dissociate. That's what it was. I was dissociating. I remember the lady saying, I needed an advocate, not a witness.
Oh, interesting.
So I signed up for this training in couples therapy and made this deal with the part of me that is like, no, we are not going to listen to couples fight. And I said, listen, let's do this training. I think it'll be very helpful for me personally. And I'll promise I never will be a couples therapist.
And I think it's such a beautiful, it informs the financial perspective of that expertise that you bring to what you do and what you brought to the book. Because I can bring the clinical, you bring the financial, and that is what couples need. They need both of that. They need the ability to get out of their own way in conflict, to communicate, to understand the parts of themselves that are at odds with each other. And that is where the parts work, the internal family systems, known as IFS, comes in, and the financial numbers aspect of this, which I was so, at the moment when it came clear we're going to write this book together, I was so ecstatic and remain so today because of what has been produced. I mean, it's really quite amazing.
Yeah, and to that point, so I'm kind of baked in IFS, and when I do financial therapy, which is typically one-on-one, that's the therapeutic modality that I prefer to use as a financial therapist. And Deb is not trained in IFS and was intrigued enough with IFS that we put that into the book as a lens for couples to help view themselves and each other through.
Right.
And we worked very hard on making it approachable.
Very user-friendly.
I wanted to get into the clinical technicalities of it, and I was outvoted 2-1.
Yes, you were.
and the other 2 was Kathleen Christofferson, who is our developmental editor.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to the feedback that we get around that, because IFS is kind of in a way intuitive. Like a part of me thinks this and a part of me thinks that. When we start to look at our partners, not that as a part of them is showing up.
And even as we all just talk to ourselves, you know, in the everyday life, we'll say in conversation or in our internal narrative, you know, well, you know, part of me really agrees with this, a part of me doesn't, a part of me wants to go to this vacation and a part of me doesn't. Right. And that's kind of how we self-reference anyway. And so it became very natural and a beautiful frame, a part of the framing of the book, to really help couples work through the conflict to achieve what we're hoping is going to be real intimacy and success in communication.
Yeah.